said, my name is Major Nick Horn. I'm in the United States Army, and I am a Monte Vista graduate. I'll get into that more in a minute. I grew up here in the area, and I went on to West Point in the Army. And I'm going to kind of talk you through all that, my experiences, and then hopefully at the end we'll be able to discuss a couple things that are near and dear to my heart: service and sacrifice, leadership. My 2 cents on service in general, and then maybe we'll have time for a couple of questions and answers. So, in the meantime, as Bill Gates works to get my computer working, a couple disclaimers. First, I'm here, I'm in the Army, but this is not an official Army presentation or anything like that. So anything I talk about is going to be my opinion, based on my experiences, certainly not official policy or anything like that. Secondly, second part of the disclaimer. When we have the questions and answers at the end, I'll answer almost any questions you have for me. 2 things are off limits. One is any sort of political debate based on how old you are. In 4 or 5 years, we can sit down and talk about it over a beer. But in the meantime, that's a no-go. And then secondly, operational security. I know that doesn't mean much to you, but if we get anything I can't talk about specifically, I will kind of answer it in a general manner and then move on. And lastly, I'm not here to sell you on going into the Army. This is not a recruiting brief, okay? I don't have an agenda. I'm going to make you fill out paperwork at the end or anything. So with that in mind, just keep an open mind on what I have to talk about and my experiences. The military certainly is not for everyone, nor do I expect it to be. I do think there are lessons that can be learned that can be applied to other areas of life or service or professions, etc. Okay, so my childhood. I grew up here in Northern California. I went to Rancho Romero and Stone Valley. I think they're still around. And then I started here at, back up, on my slides now. I have family. I have 2 younger brothers. One who graduated from San Ramon in 2001. And then Monte Vista was my second brother graduated here in 2005. My folks and both my brothers are still in the area. My wife Allie is a 2000 Monte Vista graduate. Allie, raise your hand. And also, my mom is here, and my brother, the San Ramon graduate, his fiance is here as well. So thanks for coming, and my mom's friend. I started my freshman year at Monte Vista was in 1994. So if my math is right, that's about the time most of you were coming into this world, which makes me feel very old. I came to Monte Vista. I did a bunch of activities that I've since forgotten about and you probably don't care about. But a couple of things I do want to hit on. I played sports here, and I also participated in leadership classes, which was a fantastic experience for me. I did as a junior, and then as a senior, I was a student body president. I was able to take a lot of the lessons from that. We had an advisor that gave us pretty free reign to run the classes we saw fit, and I was able to grow as a leader and could take that with me, West Point, and then the Army, and it's helped me throughout my career. There we go. Disclaimer, agenda. Okay, this is what we're going to try to cover all of. I will do my best. Time is a little constrained, so we'll keep things moving. Monte Vista. I graduated in June of 1998. And since California School District goes well into June, I had next to no summer break. 2 weeks later, I started at West Point. A pretty quick turnaround. Made it interesting. West Point, United States Military Academy. I started there immediately after I graduated from Monte Vista. It is a 200-year-old institution. At least it was when I graduated from there. It was founded in 1802. It's located about 1 hour north of New York City. The school motto, duty, honor, country, I find it kind of resonates throughout my Army career after I left there. It's definitely been some of the foundation for how I've tried to serve as an officer in the Army. For the athletes here, pretty good quote I came across. Not forgotten, but kind of forgot that it was out there, and I thought it was applicable. It said, "Upon the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that upon other fields on other days bear the fruits of victory." At West Point, a big part of the focus is on academics and leadership development, but there's also a big focus for every cadet on military training and on athletics, physical fitness. And this is something that applies because as you go out in the military, into the Army, that physical leadership is important, certainly on the battlefield. And lastly, a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. That is an honor code at West Point. It is non-negotiable. It means that not only can I not lie, I can't tolerate my buddy doing it. I am obligated to turn him in. So it builds that integrity as a foundation of who you are as a leader, and you take that with you out in the Army. It's a very, very critical element of the training there. I get a lot of questions. What was life like as a cadet at West Point? There's pictures from my sophomore year, my yearling year is what it's called at West Point. Allie was my then girlfriend at the time. She was still a senior here at Monte Vista. When this picture was taken, she came out to one of our formals. You start off as a new cadet in what's called Beast Barracks, and that's like basic training, but for cadets. And it is almost as much fun as it sounds. It's 6 weeks of learning to be lowest man on the totem pole, learning to follow, learning to follow rules, etc. And it's definitely a learning experience. But it's good because it teaches you, it shows you what your soldiers are going to experience once you get out into the Army as a leader. The academic year makes up the majority of your time. It's definitely intense, and it's taxpayer funded, so they're getting their money's worth out of you because there's not a lot of partying going on. Yearling year and cow year. Cow is what they call juniors there. You progressively get into higher levels of leadership and responsibility. And it's those building blocks, teaching you how to be responsible for yourself, be responsible for one person, maybe 3 people, then a squad of 5, and so on and so on. All the way up to one cadet who is what's called the regimental commander for the entire corps of cadets, all 4,000 cadets, his senior year. Wow. As a senior, they're called firsties. Not only do you have leadership positions, you also decide what branch you're going to go into in the Army. So everybody who graduates from West Point is going to be commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. But what you do in the Army depends on what you choose to branch. And your experience can be very different based on what your choices are. So you could go into the infantry. Those are the guys who are doing patrols and kicking doors in and whatnot. Or you could armor as the tanks, field artillery, the big guns. I chose to go into aviation and fly a helicopter. And so I chose that as a senior or a first at West Point. Like I said, academics makes up most of your time, but there aren't any pictures of me doing homework, which is a good thing. But I do have a couple pictures from military training, which is actually not a huge part of your day-to-day life during the school year. It's more of the summertime. But just some pictures from the exercise we did. It was a 6-mile course with a number of places where you stop and cross it, carry a boat or paddle a boat or run with the gas mask on or go to the range or go across the river, or things like that. So that was one of the many training events we did there. I also had the opportunity as a cadet to go to airborne school and jump out of airplanes, which was great. Airplanes there. My first year, my senior year, this was the beginning. I was a senior at West Point beginning in August of 2001. That's when this picture was taken. So you can imagine a very short time later, things changed pretty significantly for us. I was in class when the first tower got hit on 9/11. I heard about it, and everybody immediately went to their computers and turned them on, the TV on, and just in time to see the second tower that did hit. I think everybody here was, right around 5 years old at the time of 9/11, so I know that you've heard a lot and grown up hearing about it, but I can tell you that being on the threshold of going out into the Army, when everything changed, definitely puts things in perspective for you. You quickly realize how drastically your life has been altered. And so for a while, it was the only thing we really talked about, because we knew we were, instead of just hypothetical combat situations, we were going into a war on potentially 2 fronts, and it was very rapidly approaching. Just some pictures here. This one is taking the unit I'm with. I'll get more of that in a minute. Obviously back before 9/11. This is a picture of me on the top of the South Tower as a sophomore. And a couple years prior, you can see the North Tower there in the background. And then this picture here was taken on the 106th floor of the North Tower 10 days prior to 9/11. We were there eating at a restaurant called Windows on the World. So obviously, not only did it hit home like it hit home for everybody, but being so close to the epicenter of 9/11 and having just been there in a restaurant where almost everyone who was at work did not make it, hit home even more. On to a little bit happier, definitely a happier time, graduation, about 8 months later. I tell people that West Point was a great experience. I met a ton of awesome people, guys I will be friends with for the rest of my life. Had a lot of good experiences. I was definitely challenged, and I certainly grew as a person, as a leader. But on a day-to-day basis, it wasn't a whole lot of fun. We tried to cram our fun into the occasional day or weekend where we get out there, usually unsuccessfully, but we tried. But for the most part, it was a lot of work. So I tell people that being from West Point, being a graduate of there, is definitely better than being there. And I still maintain that 10 years, almost 10 years later. It's a picture of me on graduation day. As soon as I graduated, I went down to Fort Rucker, Alabama, which is in Lower Alabama. And if you haven't heard of it, you're probably like everybody else, because there's not a lot down there in Lower Alabama. But there is flight school, and that's when the Army taught me how to fly helicopters, which is something I love to do. I'm thinking about, as I put this presentation together, I realized that it was one of the easiest years I've had in all my time in the Army, because I was only responsible for myself and making sure that I learned what they needed me to learn. I put my nose in the books, and I flew every day. Didn't have anybody else to be responsible for it. And that was in that regard, that was great. And obviously, learning to fly was fantastic. They can teach me how to do it. I could probably teach anybody. I selected Blackhawks because of the versatility of the mission, and then I was assigned to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. A little quick background on Army aircraft. Just the Blackhawk is what I fly. It's a multi-purpose aircraft. Versatility is what it's called. It can do assaults, which is taking troops to key positions on the battlefield. Lift, basically like an air taxi, not very sexy, but still necessary. Or medevac, which is pulling the wounded, both civilian and soldiers off the battlefield. Next is a Chinook, pretty distinct aircraft. It's our heavy lift. Used a lot in Afghanistan because of its power capability. Put a whole lot of people into key positions on the battlefield in a very, very short period of time. Unfortunately, it's large, so it requires a little bit larger area to put them in. Next is Kiowa Scout aircraft. 2 pilots. All these aircraft have 2 pilots. The Chinook has 4 additional crew members in the back, and Blackhawk has 2 additional crew members in the back. Kiowa, just 2 pilots. They do reconnaissance. They support the ground force. And then the Apache. If you've heard of any helicopters, you've probably heard of the Blackhawk and the Apache. Apache is our primary attack aircraft. It provides firepower on the ground for troops who need it, and it does a very, very, very good job in that. The unit I'm in right now is a Special Operations Aviation Regiment that I assessed for and was selected for a few years back. We have unique aircraft in our inventory because of our unique mission. The top one there is what's called the Little Bird. Just like it sounds, small aircraft capable of putting people into very, very small places, and also precision fighters if they put those gun systems on that aircraft. Second, still Blackhawk. It's just got a whole lot more stuff on it. It increases capacity, capability. And then Chinook, same deal. More stuff on it, much more increased operational envelope. Okay. Real quick video before I play this, or it plays on its own. I just put a disclaimer out there. I know a lot of you have seen all kinds of video games, Modern Warfare 3, or movies. So people get a little desensitized to this. But the video I'm about to show you, it's got some training clips in the beginning. It's got a couple training clips at the end. And almost exclusively in the middle is actual combat footage of our aircraft and our individuals taken to the enemy. So, that mind, this is real. This is not this wasn't staged or anything like that. Finished up with flight school, I immediately went from Fort Rucker, Alabama to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky. It's where I live, my wife and family today. When I arrived in October of 2003, nearly the families were still there, but all the soldiers, for the most part, were gone. All 20 to 25,000 in the division. That was because they'd been in Iraq for the first 8 months of the invasion. So I was getting there a little bit late. And I was very eager to get on a plane and get downrange to meet up with them. And I was lucky in that regard because I didn't have to wait long. 10 days later, I was landing in Kuwait. I didn't even unpack my stuff. I just put it in storage, got on a plane, and was in Kuwait. I spent about 3 months in Iraq. I progressed learning to fly in a combat environment instead of, flight school. It's definitely different. And then when we were getting ready to redeploy, I was fortunate enough to be the newest officer in the unit, so I got on a convoy instead of flying back. I drove from northern Iraq all the way down through Baghdad, then through southern Iraq into Kuwait for 3 long, miserable days. Over the next year and a half, I spent time at Fort Campbell in training and progressing more as an aviator. I eventually made it to pilot command. If you think about how you drive a car, there's only one driver, right? But in a helicopter, there's 2 sets of controls up front, and the pilots can share responsibilities back and forth as they see fit. With 2 pilots up front, one of them has to be ultimately in charge. So the pilot command, once you reach a certain level of experience, if you pass your evaluation, you can fly as the senior aviator in that aircraft. So I was lucky to have that happen before my next Iraq deployment. I also got to go to SEER school. That stands for survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. So basically, you learn how to survive if you end up behind enemy lines, isolated, and then evade if they're looking for you, resist if they capture you, and then escape afterwards. So I spent 3 days in the prison camp, getting interrogated, slapped around, and whatnot, and it was not fun at the time, but definitely a good experience looking back on it. I got engaged to my wife, Allie, in August of 2005, and then less than a month later in September, I deployed to Iraq for another year. The question I had, I get a lot of questions, what deployed life is like. And the kind of broad brush answer I can give you is, it depends. It depends on who you're with, it depends on where you are, it depends on when you're there, it depends on your personality, of course. There are some constants, at least for big Army units, because big Army units deploy for a year at a time. They're gone for a year, they're back for maybe 18 months, they're gone for another year. Special operations units, I'll get more than that later, but it's constant rotation. You're a lot busier, but for a lot shorter period of time. The big Army units is constant mixture of boredom and stress. So you either have not enough going on, or way too much, and there's never a good balance. And if it is, it's just because you're transitioning from one to the other. So that is constant. Soldier issues as a leader, you deal with homesickness a lot, guys, especially younger soldiers who've never deployed before. There are certain times in a deployment where over the course of a year, you know it's going to spike at the 3-month mark, and it's going to spike at the 8 or 9 month mark. And that's normal. You just kind of got to anticipate it, make sure that you're taking care of your soldiers and that you're helping them work through that, and they're calling home and maintaining relationships to the best of their ability. There are personnel challenges. In high school, there are problems with inside circles of friends or with different cliques or whatever the case may be. It's not too different in the Army. You just have a different population of folks. So as a leader, you got to constantly manage that and keep the peace or squash conflict when it's there, so that your soldiers are as focused on the mission as possible. And then the mission challenges, again, they totally vary. So if you talk to 3 or 4 or 5 veterans and they might tell you their experience is very different in Iraq, Afghanistan, or whatever, well, it's probably because it was. Because you can be in the same place with the same unit at a different time and things have changed completely. But one thing that is constant for the people who keep a healthy mindset when they're deployed is that they find something to mark each day off with, at least when time allows it. So if you work out, you get to the gym every day. If you like to read, you read every day. Or play video games if you are able to set one up. Find something so that at the end of every day you can decompress and get ready for the next day. And again, it really depends on where you're at. There's some guys in more austere conditions don't have quite as many opportunities to decompress as others. I don't have a ton of pictures, but that's one picture of me from Iraq in 2005 to 2006. Some pictures of our aircraft conducting assault operations. Another one. When I got out of the 101st, I assessed and I was selected for the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, which is where I'm at today. 160th consists of the Army's best qualified aviators and support personnel. And we provide support to the Special Operations Forces, the most elite ground forces in our military, almost exclusively. We have 2 mottos. The family-friendly one is Night Stalkers Don't Quit, because under no circumstances are we going to allow ourselves to let the individuals we support, we call them customers, down on the ground. The second one is Death Waits in the Dark, and that comes from our pioneering night vision flight. We use our night vision to give us an advantage at nighttime, take that away from the enemy. And that began after an accident in the Iranian desert in 1981, where the United States tried to put together a group, a hodgepodge group of aircraft and individuals to conduct a raid to rescue our hostages in Iran. And they were unsuccessful because they weren't equipped to handle the environment. And so the 160th was stood up, and we trained and essentially mastered the art of long-range precision assault in any environment, in any condition, anywhere in the world, time on target, plus or minus 30 seconds. We've been involved in every U.S. conflict in the United States has been a part of since 1981. Who's familiar with Black Hawk Down? Anybody? Seen the movie? So the aircraft from the movie were our aircraft, and the real story were our aircraft exclusively. we provided that support, and obviously lost some of our guys during that Mogadishu incident. We're the most readily deployable task force, aviation task force in the world. What that means is at a moment's notice, you get the call, we fold up helicopters, we take air crews, and we launch on to anywhere we're needed if it's a high enough value target. And that's the same thing we do when we're in Afghanistan and Iraq. A lot of videos you saw, the operations we conduct and the customer that we support, it's exclusively to target the highest value targets, the worst guys in Iraq, the worst guys in Afghanistan, with the intent of destabilizing those terrorist regimes from the top down. Take the leader away, and the next guy that steps up, you take him out. The next guy steps up. Sooner or later, that quality of leadership is so weak that the network collapses from the top down, and that is our mission. And it's I'm very proud to be part of it, and and I know all the customers we support are as well. We were the first rotary wing aircraft into Afghanistan a couple weeks after 9/11. We put in just a couple special operations, special forces folks to start that destabilization of Taliban. And we've been constantly deployed nonstop since September of 2001. So we've had air crews and aircraft and personnel, not the same ones, but rotating in and out nonstop for the past 10 years so that we can maintain that pressure on those highest value targets, which again is very different than the big army where they rotate large groups of people in and out of theater. I began serving in the 160th in 2007. Just prior to that, I got married. That was one of the rare pictures. That's me on the left, downrange. I'm not able to take a whole lot of them. That's one of us after me and my crew flew a flag. I was married in 2007, so Allie went from being an Army fiance to an Army wife, and then quickly we jumped in with both feet into the 160th. I went through the extensive Green Platoon training, learning to go from an Army aviator to a Night Stalker, and then served as a platoon leader and deployed five times with the 160th to Iraq. Just some pictures, some of our training, what we do. We got the little bird, precise customer drop-off anywhere they need to be put. The Chinooks do the same thing. So our customers, they go where the enemy is. And the enemy is going to go to the least hospitable place he can think of. So we have to train to support our customers in any way, shape, or form, and that's any environment, anywhere in the world, any time of day, any sort of weather. So some pictures of Chinooks working out in the mountains. It's a fast rope like you saw in the videos. If you can't land somewhere because you got a big old helicopter, you put them on the roof or in a courtyard or on the side of the mountain with the rope. We do over the water work. We need to pick guys up out of the water or drop them off. And the Chinooks will even land in the water and let boats drive up into the back of them, which is very, very difficult to do. It's an entire coordinated effort on behalf of the crew, the pilots in the front, and the four crew members in the back, making sure that you're down deep enough that that boat gets in, but not so deep that you're the submarine. Our little bird attack, some of the most precise support in the world for troops on the ground. Just some sequence of pictures here. Some of the training we'll do cooperates. We'll work on our precision infiltration and exfiltration techniques so that we can take our customer and put them anywhere they need to go, regardless of if it's on the top of a roof, on the side of a building, or whatever. And again, that's just working that finesse of the aircraft. Start off doing it at daytime, do it at night, and work up to much more complicated stuff than that. Also, rope guys work on putting people onto a roof, pulling them out of the water. Another unique capability we bring is the ability to refuel in the air. Something I very much enjoy doing. Now, helicopters are great because they can hover, right? They can stay in one place, unlike a plane. But the cost is that they're inefficient when it comes to gas. They guzzle gas like you wouldn't believe. 360 gallons of gas in a Black Hawk will last you less than 2.5 hours in the right conditions. It is very, very high use of fuel. So because of that, if we have long-range missions, we now have the ability, using aerial refueling, to hook up with a tanker that has a ton of fuel on board, take that fuel through that probe that you see sticking out the front, and then continue on the mission. Essentially, until the endurance of the aircraft or crew is exhausted. You can do this, in theory, indefinitely. We've had 15-hour missions where they refueled 4 times on the way in, 4 times on the way out. Excuse me, 4 times total, I believe. A picture of artist rendition of some of our operations in Afghanistan. And then a rare picture of a Chinook operating in Afghanistan during the daytime. Typically they operate at night, gives them the benefit of darkness and cover. But occasionally you got to work in the day, and do what you got to do. A couple more pictures of Black Hawks. This one's from Iraq. Another one from Iraq. Last one, you got an aircraft getting ready to land, pick the customer up off target after a mission. The support that the 160th provides to all the special operations in our nation is unparalleled. And we support, bar none, the most elite ground force that's out there. I'd put them against anyone in the world. Confident. They're battle-hardened after 10 years, and even prior to that, they were extremely competent. So we pride ourselves on the support we provide to them because we expect our support to be on par with theirs. But it's come at a cost. The regiment was stood up 30 years ago. Since then, this is our memorial wall. We've lost 33 of our soldiers in Afghanistan in the past 10 years, and 2 in Iraq with a number more wounded. And in our history, including Somalia and Desert Storm, etc., we have 92 names on our wall. It's actually, fortunately, been expanded because we ran out of room. But that doesn't change the fact that we very much pride ourselves on the support we provide. Wouldn't have it any other way. So I spent a number of years in the 160th, and then I left voluntarily to take command of a company. And if you think of company command, a company, I had 70 soldiers. About half of them were my crew chiefs, my mechanics, my door gunners in the back, and then half of them were my pilots up front. I had 12 Blackhawks, and I was, as a commander, you're the boss. You're responsible for how the company does, what it does do, what it doesn't do. You're ultimately responsible, down to the individual level. Well, there are layers of leadership that I would oversee, that have more hands-on interaction with the troops. But I took command in January of 2010. This is a ceremony where they hand the guidon, represents the company, to me. That is my boss, the battalion commander, handing me the guidon, me in front of the company, and then I deployed just shy of 3 months later. In March of 2010, a picture of my wife, Allie, and my little one, Emmy, and I, the day I left. She was 3 months old the day I left for Afghanistan. Once we got there, there were large volume of challenges, especially as a commander. Here's some of my guys flying the flag. This is one of the crews I flew with. I'm second on the right there, flying a flag after a mission. People ask me a lot of times what the crew chief office looks like when they're not out working on the aircraft. It's just a snapshot. It's obviously messy because they're constantly bringing things in and out to work on. They don't have to be out in the sun or the rain or the cold. It's definitely a lot of downtime between missions. Sometimes, picture guys killing time. This is what the flight line looks like. You've got all the aircraft lined up out there on the base route, and we launch from there to support as needed to a variety of different locations. Just another shot of the Chinooks there. So a picture from the cockpit flying over Afghanistan with the doors off. We take them off so that when the dust that envelops the aircraft in a lot of conditions, when it envelops you, get a little bit better chance of seeing the ground as you're landing during that critical phase. It's very challenging, and as you're coming in, if you lose the ground, you got to kind of feel for it. It's not a fun position to be in. So we take the doors off to increase your visibility. We also take the doors off if you got to put guys on the side of a mountain, got to do balance on one wheel or something like that. It's a lot easier to see what you're looking at and have a frame of reference as you're doing it. And the last thing we do, because it gets so hot, the hottest I've seen it was in Iraq in 2006. Take the doors off and get some airflow through. It's still kind of like a hair dryer in your face. I believe I saw 56 degrees Celsius That's about 132 Fahrenheit. Touch on the warm side. So anything you can do to increase that airflow is good. There's some of my friendly crew chiefs. They're very good at what they do. They're usually grumpy. You gotta give them food and time off, and they'll be happy. Some dust storms. I'm sure you've all heard about the dust in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's kind of like out of a movie sometimes. So we have to battle those where the visibility goes down to nothing. You can't fly roofs like that. It's just impossible. Like you can't drive a car if it's bad enough. There's some pictures of dust storms, and they're always fun to clean up afterwards. We provide medevac support to our injured troops on the battlefield and also civilians. We provide actually probably the majority of our missions are to help civilians, injured kids, kids who might get hurt in a house fire, or if the enemy does, they'll use civilians to try to further their cause. So we'll get involved with that and help out whenever possible. I put a picture here. People ask me a lot of times if I work with women. The unit I'm in right now, we don't have any pilots or crew chiefs that are women. But when I was in the 101st in command, I had 2 female soldiers in my unit. One was a pilot. She had been a crew chief before. And then this was my other crew chief, or my one female crew chief. She actually received the Purple Heart. A bullet grazed the back of her neck on a medevac mission. She's fine. She's fine the next day, just a couple scratches. But there are definitely women who work with me, although certainly not, in normal ratios. Just a couple pictures over Kandahar City. You don't see a lot of built-up cities in Afghanistan, but there are a few. Kandahar is one of the major ones. That's what a smaller base looks like. It's not much. That's what the guys on the ground will oftentimes live out of. A couple more out of Kandahar City. I'm going to keep moving here. One thing, I put this picture on the guy second from the left. His name was Jonah McClellan. And one of the unfortunate things I had to deal with as a commander was I lost a crew in September of 2010. 5 of the crew members were lost. 3 of them were from my company and 2 were supporting. And then we had 6 soldiers and SEALs in the back who were also killed. So it certainly makes me appreciate the freedoms that we have and the sacrifices those guys were willing to make, everything out of line to support our customer and help the people of Afghanistan. Quick picture of my company immediately following that memorial service. This is R&R. I came home after 8 months. Saw my little one. It obviously changed quite a bit. And then came back to Afghanistan for a quick 3 months. And then the best part was just coming home. This is the ceremony. Everybody forms up after they get off the plane and march through the doors to family and friends who've been waiting for them for a while. It's obviously very happy. That's Allie, my little one. She's obviously gotten even bigger. That was her 1 year older than I left her. A couple months later, I changed command. Same thing, only in reverse. I wasn't receiving. I was given the guidon, and I relinquished command of the company responsibility and resumed my job back in the 160th where I'm at today. So that's kind of my story. A couple things I'd like to talk about. I know we're still crunched for time. A couple themes I'd like to hit on. Just let me ask you about service and sacrifice and what my thoughts are and how I feel about the civilian-military gap. Without talking about it for an hour, what I can tell you is there are a lot of stresses that have been placed upon our military over the past 10 years. Less than 1% of the eligible population has served since 9/11. Less than 0.5% of the population is currently serving. And that's a smaller percentage of the population in uniform than we've had at any other time that our nation's been in a major conflict. But I'll tell you that the guys who do serve, one, they sincerely believe in the mission, and especially the guys I support right now, the guys I work with in 160th, they're warriors. They believe in the cause to the very bottom, the core of their being. And so they believe in it, and they believe in preserving our way of life and going after the people who threaten that through extremist means. But it hasn't come without a cost. Certainly the soldiers we've lost, the soldiers have been wounded, but also the strain on families is something we really can't put a price tag on. But it is something just to keep in mind because it's not easy on our folks. But it's something I have the utmost respect for them. And then lastly, and I kind of skipped through because I want to have a few minutes at the end here, but a couple thoughts on service. The military is a great opportunity for some people. If you want to learn to be a leader, if you want to serve your country, you want a solid job opportunity that's going to prepare you either for a career in the military or for the civilian world, you're not going to get that experience faster than going into the Army or the Marines or the Navy or the Air Force, be it out of high school or after college if you go through an ROTC program and become an officer. But I know that's not for everybody. So if you don't take anything away from my entire brief today, and if I've already lost you, and if you're dozing right now, the one thing I would encourage you to remember or to take away is that any sort of service is going to help you, and it's also going to help the people around you. So I encourage you to find something that is meaningful to you, and if it's for a couple of years after high school or college, or if it's for a year, or if it's for a semester, or if it's for a summer, or whatever the case may be, find somewhere to serve those around you, because I think not only will you grow as a person and kind of expand the bubble that we're in, here in Northern California, it'll also help you grow to be, again, a leader or more mature person once you get out into the real world. So I definitely encourage you to consider that, and hopefully that's a useful takeaway. And then lastly, this is a picture. In August of 2009, when I was in the 160th, we had an aircraft that was lost in a training accident, along with her crew, on the side of Mount Massive, a 14,000-foot mountain in Colorado. And the picture here, when they crashed, there were a number of kids, they were a few years younger than me, who were working on the mountain doing trail work. These were definitely not people who would have any sort of interaction with the military in any other situation. They were there. When the aircraft went down, they spent time with two of our guys who didn't survive, but who were still alive when they reached them. They were there at the end for them. And our organization has built like a long-lasting relationship with these folks. We still bring them back to like our balls and whatnot, and our formals. And it just goes to show that just because you don't plan on serving or wearing a uniform, it doesn't necessarily mean your path might not cross with the military in some shape, form, or fashion. Certainly, hopefully not like this, but if it does, just know that it's out there. And without further ado, I know we're getting short on time, so please let me open it up to some questions here. I know there are a few. Who's going to ask the first one? Because the ball starts rolling after that.